Hello, hey boomer listeners. I love it when y'all click on the chat box and you say, "Hi, Wendy," and let me know you're out there, or you say hi to our guest. That's just so much fun to let us know that you're there. And I am super excited, not just about the conversation with Shelley today, but also about how Hey Boomer is doing. We are now have guests booked out through October. That's just incredible to me. And we have had some very inspiring guests, some very informative guests, and the lineup that we have coming up, I think you are going to absolutely love it. You're going to learn and be excited. And, there's just so much to get from this community. And the Hey Boomer community is inspiring to me. And I really want to continue to help bring these guests and these messages to a wider audience, to boomers everywhere. So I need your help. What I need you to do is, if you haven't already, like the Hey Boomer page on Facebook. I also would enjoy it if you could share the post every week when I post who our guest is for next week, and share that on your own page and invite your friends to join us, because that's going to help us grow the audience. Also, when you get engaged, when you ask questions, when you say hello, when you say, "Oh, I really like what that person just said," or "That was inspiring," all of that helps show Facebook that we are an engaged community and helps us to be more involved with what is going on and lets us grow. And then finally, as we are talking, if you will like it or give us a heart and let us know that that was really special or meaningful to you, that helps. And then if you think somebody would enjoy this conversation and they weren't able to join us today, there's two things that you can do. You can share it with them by tagging them in the comments, or you can point them to the YouTube channel, where the recordings are posted at the end of Monday, because I'll go through and edit it and see if there's anything that needs to be cleaned up, and then I'll post it on the YouTube channel. And so all of the past recordings are there. If there's any that you missed that you really would like to catch up on, learn something about, the one last week was phenomenal about dementia and self-care and what to look for. So I think that was a good one to take advantage of. So I just wanted to share all of that with you. And then I also wanted to just remind you that this is a community of interested, involved, relevant people. That's why I started Hey Boomer. I feel like at this age, at this stage in our lives, we have so much to give back, that we want to keep being involved, that we want to keep inspiring ourselves and all of the people around us, and younger generations, older generations. It's just a wonderful opportunity for us to come together as a community. So I encourage you to be involved. Hi, Anne. Thank you for saying hi. And the conversation today, so let me tell you who we're talking to. Her name is Shelley Dunstone, as you saw in the post about the call today. And Shelley lives in Adelaide, Australia. So I recorded this call with Shelley a day or so ago, because if we were doing it live right now, it would be 2:30 in the morning tomorrow for Shelley. And I just didn't think that was reasonable to ask her to get up at 2:30 in the morning to have this conversation with us. And she might not have been as clear and present with the call if she had been getting up at 2:30 in the morning. But even though this is a recorded call, it's still important to me that you are involved. So as she's talking and you're hearing some of this story, please continue to leave your comments, continue to like what you're hearing, give us a heart, so that we know what's going on. And then also, if there are questions that come up, you can also go ahead and post those I can try to answer them, or I can share them with Shelley so she could answer them later, because she's definitely looking forward to seeing this posted. So let me tell you a little bit about her before I bring her on and we start our conversation. So Shelley Dunstan leads a double life. By day, she is a consulting, or she owns a consulting business called Legal Circles in Adelaide, Australia. And there, in that business, she helps lawyers achieve their business and career aspirations. By night, she is a cabaret singer, and she sings bossa nova, French chansons, jazz standards, and pop songs. She has a particular affection for the music of the 1960s. Combining stories and songs, Shelley has created and performed 8 original shows, including with titles such as The Confessions of a Wannabe Bond Girl, Adventures with a Brazilian, Unbreak My Heart, A French Romance, Bossa Supernova, La Grande, Lonnie 66, and Paris, LA, and Rio. Shelley holds marketing and applied finance degrees as well as her law degree, and she also is an educator for lawyers who have recently graduated, and in Australia they need some additional mentoring, I guess like here, before they pass the bar or before they become actually qualified to practice. And so she works with young lawyers in that aspect as well. So I am going to go ahead and bring Shelley on and let you meet her. So let me start this. Hi, Shelley. Welcome to Hey Boomer.
Hello, Wendy. Thanks for having me on the show.
I'm very excited about hearing all about your life and the double life that you lead. So maybe if you can just start us off a little bit with what you do during the day as part of being an attorney or a consultant to an attorney.
Yeah, sure. Well, as you indicated in my introduction, most of my life I've done sensible things. What we're going to talk about is something a bit more frivolous that I decided to have a go at. Yeah, I was a lawyer for about 17 years altogether. I was a commercial litigation lawyer dealing with business disputes of all kinds. I was both a solicitor and a barrister. That means I did the office work and the court work as well. Very stressful, long hours. After I had my family, that became more difficult to do. And so I decided to branch out into some other areas and activities. So in my consulting practice, I help lawyers to achieve their business and career aspirations. I help lawyers with law firms with recruitment and individual lawyers with career advice and career mentoring. I also do training. I've got a marketing degree as well as law. So I provide training for lawyers to help them promote their practices. And I also help lawyers buy and sell legal practices. And as well as that, I'm a teacher. I teach people how to be lawyers. So I'm a lecturer in the practical training course for law graduates that they need to do here in Australia before they get admitted as legal practitioners.
Wow. So that all does sound like a very detailed, maybe somewhat dry, very rigid kind of work that you would have to do in a legal profession. And like you said, very stressful. So how do you segue that into suddenly you're a cabaret singer?
I agree, it's an unlikely progression. Look, in my mid-40s, a barrister friend of mine gave me a bit of a shove and got me into singing in rock bands. And when he first suggested it, I said, "Don't be ridiculous. I'm not a rock chick." He said, "Come along on Sunday. We're having a jam. Just come and watch." for some reason, I went along, and he rigged it so that I was called up to sing in the first group, to sing backing vocals. And he tricked me. But when I got up there and the drums started and the guitars started, I thought, where has this been all my life? I just loved it. And from then on, I went forwards with that. Look, it was amateur standard. You're singing with garage bands. It was a heck of a lot of fun. Didn't do it all that often. Once every few months we'd have a bit of a gig. But that's how I got back into singing, because I had been singing in a choir at school. That was decades earlier, of course. It was a very serious and disciplined choir. And when I finished school, I was, I'd really had it with all that discipline, and I didn't sing again for decades. So it was my lawyer friend who got me back into music.
So you said once you got up on the stage and you heard the music and the drums and, you just felt it right away.
It went right through me.
Was there some nervousness? Some like, oh my gosh, I'm going to embarrass myself up here?
Of course. I don't know what made me go. I was terrified, but at the same time, I wanted to give it a go. And it was so challenging.
I bet.
The need to hit the notes and remember the lyrics. Terrifying.
Well, so how do you do that, Shelley? You are an attorney by schooling and profession, and I mean, you have to have every T crossed and every I dotted before you go and present a case in the courthouse. You can't make a mistake or your client loses. How did you deal with this, getting up on stage after not singing all those years and maybe missing a lyric or missing a note?
Every time I made a mistake, I felt just mortified, so embarrassed every time. When you study law, you don't memorize stuff. All the exams are open book. You take your notes in with you. And of course, when you go to court, you've got notes. You don't carry everything in your head. You don't prepare your script. In fact, it's a mistake to prepare your script, because then you're not flexible. You need to listen and react in real time and alter the next question accordingly, or drill down into what the witness is saying. So I had not had any practice really at memorizing things, and suddenly I had to memorize all these lyrics. So that was a new skill that I had to learn. And the other thing is, as you indicated, in court, you have to be very careful about what comes out of your mouth, because what comes out matters. You can withdraw it, but it's not quite the same as keeping it in the first place. Whereas on stage, you need to be a lot more spontaneous. And spontaneity was not my middle name, I have to say.
So for someone like you who, you teach, you guide, being perfect in some ways is probably an important part of your professional life. And as women, a lot of us have been taught along the way, you have to be better than these others to be accepted as a professional. I mean, how did you deal with your, this mindset of I have to be perfect?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, isn't it? Because intellectually we know none of us are perfect. But I think that when you're growing up, if you are conscientious and you generally do well, then an expectation develops in yourself and in others around you that you're going to do well. And if you mess up, it becomes very embarrassing. You almost feel ashamed about it. And in a funny way, that kind of holds you back from trying things that you might not be good at. Also, as a lawyer, a new lawyer in the 1980s, it was not common for women to be in the profession. I think my generation was the first large cohort coming into the profession. And so there was very much an aspect of you had to prove yourself to the men, and you almost had to work harder than the men, and you could say do better, but what's that? But you certainly, you were needing to prove yourself.
Yeah. So this was probably a very healthy avenue to go out and look at music and say, well, okay, I'm going to be spontaneous. I'm going to be crazy, maybe. And I don't have to be perfect.
Yeah. And I'd never done anything really on stage. I'd shied away from things like acting in the past because I thought I'd feel so embarrassed. And now there I was in a rock band with everybody looking at me. Yes, I did that for maybe 3 years on and off. Every few months we did a gig. But by that time, I was starting to find it difficult to find more rock songs that I wanted to sing. I had about 15 songs in my repertoire, but my range was limiting me. I have quite a deep voice, and I was finding it hard to reach the higher notes. And so that put a lot of songs out of reach for me. And I was looking for something else, something more. And then one day, my husband and I were going out to the theatre, and he dropped me off whilst he parked the car so that I could pick up the tickets. I sauntered along the street, and I noticed there was a new place. The old tobacconist shop had gone, and there was this new place, and it had velvet curtains in the window, and there was a poster that caught my eye. This sexy songstress in a red dress with one of those old-fashioned metal microphones. And it asked 3 questions. Have you been singing in your lounge room? Has it got too small for you? And would you like to sing here in front of a supportive audience? And I just went, tick, tick, tick. Yes, I have to be there. And when I took my husband after the play to show him this poster, I said, I'm going. And he said, why? He had no idea that I'd be interested in that. And he was actually a little bit worried in case it was a bit seedy.
Yeah.
He had this desire to protect me, I think. But I persuaded him to come along with me.
So is that when you started down the road of Brazilian music?
This is when I got into cabaret. It was an open mic night for cabaret, called Cabaret Live. You came along with sheet music, handed it to the pianist, and your performance was impromptu, no rehearsal. So you can imagine how challenging this was for somebody who liked to be prepared. But it made the adrenaline pump.
I bet.
After a while, I started to bring those Brazilian songs. They were songs that I'd been practicing in my singing lessons because I'd found a singing teacher. When I started with a rock band, I didn't want to sound like a choir girl in the rock band. And so I found a singing teacher. I went to the School of Rock Music School because they sponsored the Rock Music Association. And so they wouldn't think it's strange that this middle-aged woman suddenly wanted to sing in rock bands. So I'd been having some singing lessons, and I'd discovered these Brazilian songs. The one that you'd probably know would be The Girl from Ipanema. That's the most famous. Antonio Carlos Jobim. Tall and tan and young and lovely, the girl from Ipanema goes walking, and when she passes, each one she passes goes, ah. I mean, just about everybody's heard that song, even if just in an elevator. And that composer wrote so many beautiful songs. And yes, I started to bring those songs along to Cabaret Live and give them a go.
Well, then you did more than that. You decided to go to Brazil and
Yeah,
perform.
yeah. Yes, shortly after I started at Cabaret Live, I went with my husband to the Diana Krall concert in the Barossa Valley. You know, Diana Krall, beautiful jazz pianist and songstress. And there I bought the DVD of Diana Krall's concert in Rio. And the next weekend, I snapped open the box and put the disc in the machine, settled back on the couch to watch Diana performed her repertoire of jazz standards, and it was in a theatre that was like La Boheme, where I did Cabaret Live, but on a much bigger scale. You know, little round tables, cocktails, candles, muted lighting. And then Diana started singing in Brazilian Portuguese. And by the time she reached the end of the fourth line, the whole place erupted. You know, people were cheering wildly, and the roof just about lifted off because she was singing in their language and they were loving it. And at that moment, I sat upright on the couch and I said to myself, I want what she's having. I wanted to sing their music in their language, in their country. I wanted my own concert in Rio. And then I did a reality check because I had never been to Brazil. I didn't know anybody there. I didn't speak the language. I was hardly even a singer. At Cabaret Live, I was accruing stage time at the rate of 3 minutes per month. So I was dreaming. It was just a crazy, stupid idea, and I immediately dismissed it.
But I have a recording, Shelley, that shows that you actually made it on stage in Brazil. So I would like to show that and then let you talk about how that happened. Okay?
All right.
So let me go there. Here we go.
Tall and tan and young and lovely, the girl from Ipanema goes walking, and when she passes each one, she passes yours. Ah, when she walks, it's like a samba that swings so cool and sways so gently, that when she passes each one, she passes yours. Ah, oh, porque estou tão sozinha. Oh, porque tudo é tão triste. Oh, beleza que existe. A beleza que não é só minha, que também passa sozinha. Ah, se ela soubesse que quando ela passa, o mundo sorri na frente de graça e fica mais lindo por causa do amor. A beleza que existe, a beleza que não é só minha, também passa sozinha.
Se ela soubesse que quando ela passa, o mundo sorrindo se enche de graça e fica mais lindo por causa do amor.
All right. That was amazing. How fun.
It really was, yes.
And you were singing in Portuguese.
Oh, yes, yes.
So, okay, so you got to tell us the story of how you learned Portuguese, how you ended up in Brazil on the stage with Brazilian musicians. I want the story.
All right. Well, I continued taking my music, including the Brazilian songs, to Cabaret Live once a month. And every now and then I thought about my vision of performing in Brazil, but I had no idea how to do that. And I thought it was just a silly dream. Well, about 3 years later, something happened to propel me. I started to feel there's something weird going on with my heart. It was racing, and sometimes it felt like it missed a beat. And when I had medical investigations, I discovered that I had a leaking mitral valve. Now, the valve controls the flow of blood through the heart, and if it's allowed to flow back the wrong way, the heart swells and, well, eventually you die. And so I needed to have open heart surgery. When I went to my surgeon to meet my surgeon, he leaned across the desk to me and he said, I must inform you of the risks of this operation. There are three main risks. Three big ones are heart attack, stroke, and death.
This was the risk of the surgery?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So, well, I brought out my diary and said, what date shall we do it? What choice did I have? Without the surgery, I die anyway. When I came out of the operation and realised I was alive, it began to dawn on me, I've got a second chance at this. And it takes a long time to recover from open heart surgery, 3 months, which gave me a lot of time to think. And I began to think, well, if I'm going to live, I'm going to really live. I should do the things that I want to do. And I think, Wendy, now that we boomers are reaching the age that we are, we start to realize we're not here forever. This is not forever. What we have is now, and we should be using the time in the best way we can and not squandering our time. So I thought, I'm going to have my concert in Rio. I'm going to work out how to do it. And when I used to work as a lawyer, I used to react and respond to the things that came across my desk. People would bring me problems and I would sort them out and deal with them. But now I began to imagine and initiate and try to make something new happen. A lot of industries are more creative than, say, law, where you make something and they create a market for it. Whereas I was used to just responding to what happened around me. Now I began to initiate something for myself. I thought about, what would I need? What would be the elements of this challenge? Well, I would need some musicians to accompany me. I'd need a venue, and I'd need an audience. And I decided to start with musicians, and being the very sensible and conservative person that I am, I went straight to Facebook. And I discovered that I was connected with a Brazilian musician. I contacted him and I said, I'd like to have a concert in Rio de Janeiro. Would you like to accompany me?
You just came right out with that first question. Oh my gosh. The second chance changed you.
I waited for a response. And the message came and he said no. He said no because he didn't play the songs that I had mentioned, or the composers that I had mentioned. He played the songs of other composers, which I didn't sing. So we didn't seem to have a match there. He said, but I have a friend who would be perfect for you. This is like the 6 degrees of separation, isn't it?
Yes, for
Somebody knows
sure.
somebody knows somebody. And this is how social media works.
Mm-hmm.
He said his name is Aeneas Rush. Why don't you have a look at his videos on YouTube and connect with him? I'm sure he'd be perfect for you. So I had a look at his videos on YouTube. There were about 2 of them. Neither of them were bossa nova. They were his own compositions. But he seemed to play guitar quite well and he had a nice voice. So I messaged him in the same sort of way. His response came back straight away. Yes, of course, I would love to accompany you in a concert in Rio. He didn't live in Rio de Janeiro. He lived in a small town far to the south. And I didn't really know how to make this project progress. I thought about the risks, the logistics. Suppose I was able to set up a concert in Rio. Supposing this guy turned up and we didn't get along, or the music wasn't any good, supposing he didn't even show up, supposing he wasn't even who he said he was. I was going to have egg all over my face, and it was going to be expensive egg. So I thought, well, what can I do? How do I make this project go forward? Well, I decided I did some creative thinking. I could have taken a musician from Australia with me, but the musicians that I knew, they're very busy, and I thought it would be very hard to find a time when they'd be able to come with me. And I also quite like the idea of a cross-cultural experience, of working with somebody who was authentically Brazilian, and it was their country. I decided to invite my new Facebook friend to come to Adelaide, Australia, to rehearse with me and see if we get along. Test it out. See if we get along and we could do a show here. And he said, yes, I'd love to come to Australia.
But that was smart. It kind of removed some of the risk of you going there and him not showing up or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this is a discrete project in itself.
Mm-hmm.
If it goes well, we can take it further. If not, well, there's not much lost. So I did arrange for him to come to Australia. We had, well, a bit of a glitch, really. I set everything up. I set up a show in the Adelaide Fringe Festival, venues, hotels, flights, had everything organised. And then I discovered that he needed a special visa in order to perform in Australia. He could not perform publicly without this special visa. And it took, well, a minimum of 3 months, I learned, to obtain it. And so there was really no way that we could get this visa in time. So the posters arrived. I opened the box and trashed the lot. I cancelled the venues, the airfares, the hotel, and started again for the following year. It took 9 months to get the visa. It's a very complex process, particularly with the language barrier. And you asked me about learning Brazilian Portuguese. The funny thing about this project was once I was committed to it, all kinds of coincidences occurred to help me reach my goal. Now I found people to help me with the music and with the language. I found a language school 5 minutes from my home, the Brazilian Ethnic School of South Australia. It was newly established. I saw an article in the newspaper and phoned up the director to organise to go for classes. So yeah, I started going to lessons on Saturday mornings. And by the time my Brazilian friend arrived, we finally did get his visa. You know, people later said, I never thought you'd get it. Didn't believe you'd get the visa. And I had never done any visa work either. I did that all myself because I thought, you know, it's just so hard with the language the language barrier. So yeah, by the time my Brazilian friend arrived, I had been learning for about 12 months.
Oh,
I was
okay.
not conversational. You know, there's only so much you can learn on Saturday mornings in the space of a year. Can you imagine how I was at the airport the night he was arriving? How excited and nervous I felt. Did he get on the plane? Did he think it was just a hoax? What would he be like? Would we get along? What would the music be like? And I waited for about an hour and a half at the airport until a man came out with a fedora hat on his head and a guitar on his back. And I recognized him straight away. And I ran towards him with my sign with his name on it. I took him to the car park with his gear. We put his luggage in the back, and he tried to climb into the driver's seat of my car.
Oh,
We
Wrong
drive
side.
on the other. We drive on the other side in Australia.
Wrong side.
So I got into the car, and as we drove away towards the city, I realized I have to speak. We can't sit here in silence. I have to speak. I'm going to mess up big time because I've only been learning for a year, but it's better to make mistakes than it is to drive in silence. Well, he didn't seem to be too worried at all. He just spoke in Portuguese and assumed that I would understand. He spoke no English.
Oh, no.
But look, we found a shared vocabulary. We managed to rehearse. We got to know each other. My proficiency in the language increased immensely in the 10 days that he was here. We did our 2 shows in the festival. They went really well. And the net result of all of that was that he invited me to come to Brazil to perform in his town, Jaraguá do Sul. And I thought that's a really sensible next step, because we'll consolidate our musical partnership and we'll get to know each other better. And yeah, that's a really good next step in our partnership. So that's what we did. My husband and I went to Brazil. This was our reconnoiter trip. He found a conference that he could attend in Recife in the north. And on that visit also, we went to Rio de Janeiro because we needed to find a venue.
Okay.
And a musician friend here had a friend in Rio de Janeiro who ran a music bar. So we organised to go there. We managed to get tickets. We went there on the Saturday night. I'd sent a show reel to this guy by email and managed to speak to the guy during the break. And he said, "Oh, haven't we responded to you yet? I'm really sorry. It's just been crazy. It's just been so busy." Yeah, sure. We'll put you on the program. No problems. So easy as that. No problems.
That's great.
And as we departed, he said, "Yes, look, send me an email. We'll set it up." Got back to Australia and emailed him to work out a date for the show. And I didn't hear back straight away, so I emailed again. He must have been so busy. So I phoned, and I was told, look, the best time to speak to him is 11 a.m. on a Saturday. That equates to about midnight on Saturday night. Did I feel like phoning Brazil at midnight on Saturday. Really not. But I made the call, spoke to the guy, and he said, "Oh, sorry, I've just been so busy. Yeah, look, email me at my private email address." And I took it down. So I emailed him. Still nothing. Kept checking. No, has it gone to spam? This went on. And obviously, the guy says yes, but he means no.
Mm.
For some reason, we're not what he's looking for, or for whatever reason, he's not responding. And having thought we had a venue and a deal, I was back to square one. Yeah, the result of the trip to Rio was just zero.
Mm.
So had to do some more research to find other possible places, emailed those places, still no response. And ultimately, my Brazilian friend Aeneas said, "Look, I have a friend, Mara, who works in the theatre." And I had met Mara, and I thought she's pretty sensible. He said, "How about we get Mara to follow up your inquiries?" And I thought, that makes a lot of sense. She can act as our agent. And she followed up those inquiries, and only one place responded to Mara.
Mm.
And that was a place called Beco das Garrafas, in English, Bottles Alley. This was, in the 1960s, the top place for bossa nova artists to perform. And I almost didn't dare to inquire because of that. That was the place that booked us to perform.
Wow.
We performed a 2-hour show there.
Oh my gosh, Shelley, that's so exciting.
Can
good
you
for
imagine?
you.
Can you imagine the moment that I stepped on the stage where my music idols had performed, including Antonio Carlos Jobim, the composer of The Girl from Ipanema,
Wow.
Astrid Gilberto, João Gilberto, Marcus Valle, Sergio Mendes. All the greats performed there.
So you have certainly come from react and respond to imagine and initiate. Wow. Anybody who knows you now is going to know that if you put your mind to something, you're going to make it happen.
Well, I think anyone can. I reckon the key is to commit, because once you're committed, you'll find a way.
That's amazing. I mean, I think that would be an amazing takeaway from what we're talking about today. But I wonder if there's anything else besides the idea that I think anyone can do what they commit to and what they dream about. But is there another takeaway besides that amazing takeaway?
I think an important thing is to have the dream and to honour the dream, not dismiss the dream. I think everyone, at least once in their life, should do something to amaze themselves. Take that step outside your comfort zone, whatever it is for you. I have friends who run marathons and climb mountains, and that's not for me. Music was my thing. But whatever it is, whatever your thing is, take that step and be bold.
But you have certainly inspired me. It's such a great story. And yes, maybe it was a second chance, but I think inside of you too, there's this belief in yourself and this desire to live your life, which is a great example for everybody that's been around you, I'm sure.
Yeah. And Wendy, I should explain too, the video that you showed was not in Rio. It was in Aeneas's town, Jaraguá do Sul. It was about a week later, about a week after the show that we did in Rio. But he organised some shows for us in his town. The reason that we've shown that video is because the sound's better than the video that I had in Rio. But I think you've got some photos of the show in Rio de Janeiro, and the little club called Beco das Garrafas.
Yeah, I have one photo that I have open. So hold on one second and I will show that with your beautiful dress.
That's it. Yes. Yes. So we've got Aeneas on the right playing guitar, and on the left is his friend Junior. He was the percussionist that Aeneas brought to Rio to perform with us. And they were both playing in the video. The other singer at the microphone was a guy called Rubens, very amusing guy who we performed with in Jaraguá.
Well, part of the fun, I think, is probably some of the clothes you got to wear too.
and another thing, Wendy, the night after the show in Rio, one of the greats from the 60s was performing in the same room where we played.
Oh my goodness.
A guy called Marcus Valle, who wrote another famous song called Summer Samba, or you may know it as So Nice. And Marcus Valle was celebrating his 50 years in the music business. We managed to get tickets and we went along.
Wow.
And afterwards we met him.
Well, I'm afraid to ask you what your next dream is. So,
but you know, that experience almost eclipsed everything else. I had a conversation in Portuguese with Marcus Valle.
Oh my gosh.
I would never have dreamed that would happen. But you know, once you're on the journey, unexpected things can happen, and in a sense, the journey is its own reward.
Mm-hmm.
If I'd never achieved a show in Rio, yeah, I might have been disappointed, but so much else happened along the way, which would not have happened if I'd still been sitting on the couch.
Yes, yes. Well, this has been fabulous, Shelley. And thank you so much for joining us on Hey Boomer and sharing this amazing story. And hopefully one day maybe we'll see you perform live somewhere.
Never know.
I know. Maybe I'll come to Australia. That would be amazing.
Please do.
Yes, thank you. What an inspiring story. Imagine, initiate, have a dream, honor the dream. That's what I'm doing with Hey Boomer. I am so excited about where Shelley went. And like she said, commit to the dream. Things happen. And that's where we're going with Hey Boomer. Quickly, let me tell you about our guest for next week. He's someone I've known for quite a few years. His name is Dave Benson, and Dave is a security professional. He has done everything from personal security, meaning that, with diplomats going into difficult or dangerous places. And he has his own company now where he is also working with security in the workplace, internet security, personal home security. And so that's the kind of thing he's going to be talking to us about. Very different discussion than what I just had with Shelley, but also very useful. There are so many bad actors out there around the internet and scamming us. And so I think it's going to be a very important discussion for y'all to join and bring your friends along. Just wanted to remind you that when I am not doing this broadcast, I am also offering to work with people that are looking to have a relevant retirement, to define what that means for themselves, and also for people that can't get out and network in person now. I have become very good at networking using LinkedIn. Part of that is how I am finding some of these great guests. Also some referrals from you, people in the audience. And I just also wanted to remind you that C.S. Lewis said to us one time, "You are never too old to set another goal or dream another dream." So thank you for joining me today. Let's continue to meet weekly, to learn, to dream, to share, to continue to set goals and be active in our communities. I'm grateful for all of you. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey Boomer.